Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
Yeah, no, I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine.
We must continue to help the Ukrainians resist until they can negotiate with Russia a solid peace for themselves.
Viele von Ihnen werden heute Nacht angesichts der unsäglichen Videos aus dem Weißen Haus.
The US president continues to question the NATO alliance, publicly pondering whether NATO countries, specifically France, would defend the US if attacked.
The United States was in trouble, and we called them. We said, we got a problem. France, do you think they're going to come and protect us?
Well, the French president had the perfect response, invoking a list of historical events whereby France and the United States have, quote, always been there for each other.
Quite the contrary. Peace cannot be achieved at any price and under the Russian dictator. Peace cannot be Ukraine's capitulation. It cannot be its collapse. Nor can it mean a fragile ceasefire. Today, we can no longer take Russia at its word. Ukraine has a right to peace and security for itself. And it's in our interest, in the interest of the security of the European continent. That's why we're working with our British and German friends and several other European countries. This will undoubtedly involve long-term support for the Ukrainian army. It may also involve the deployment of European forces. As early as next week, we will be bringing together the chiefs of staff of those countries who wish to assume their responsibilities. And I want to believe that the United States will stand by us. Germany, Poland, Denmark, the Baltic states and many of our partners have announced unprecedented efforts in terms of military spending. So in this time of action, which is finally beginning, France has a special status. We have the most efficient army in Europe. And thanks to the choices made by our elders after the Second World War, we have nuclear deterrent capabilities. These protect us far more than many of our neighbors. My dear compatriots, in the face of these challenges and irreversible changes, we must not give in to any excess, neither the excesses of the warmongers nor the excesses of the defeatists. France will follow only one course, that of the will for peace and freedom, true to its history and its principles.
Now, this comes as Trump made several remarks over the past few days disparaging NATO and once again vilifying Ukraine while also admitting, let me check the notes here, that they're being bombed by Russia.
On your social media post today that Russia is pounding Ukraine.
That's right.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr. President, when Ukraine runs out of the Patriot missile batteries?
Good question. Because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle. If they don't want to settle, we're out of there. Because we want them to settle. And I'm doing it to stop death. More important than anything else. Secondarily, way down the line is the money. So we're in for $350 billion, and Europe is in for $100 billion. They should be in for the same or more than us. And, you know, I watched over the last week or so what's going on in Europe. This thing could end up in World War III if we don't get it settled. This could really end up in a World War III. We got to get it settled.
President Putin is bombing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
Yeah, no, I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine. And Ukraine, I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week, early. And we're talking, I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right now. And I put a statement in, a very strong statement. Can't do that. Can't do that.
Mr. President,
we're trying to help them.
Now, of course, his comments here echo remarks that he made during his campaign in which he just blatantly admitted that Washington would not defend its NATO allies if they did not pay what Donald Trump believes was enough. This running contrary to Article 5, in which members of the NATO alliance must help each other if another member comes under attack, but not according to the leader of the free world. He expressed uncertainty about whether NATO members would defend the United States if the country were to come under attack, singling out France as an example of an ally he, quote, wasn't sure about.
And you know, the biggest problem I have with NATO, I really, you know, I mean, I know the guys very well. They're friends of mine. But if the United States was in trouble and we called them, we said, we got a problem. France, we got a problem. A couple of others I won't mention. Do you think they're going to come and protect us? They're supposed to. I'm not so sure.
So
With Japan, we have a deal, which is a very interesting one. And I love Japan.
Which history, as it usually does, fact checks Trump on that matter, considering NATO allies, including France, did come to the United States defense after, say, the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, wherein which Article 5 was invoked and led to NATO's largest ever military operation in Afghanistan. But the thing is, as a result, several leaders have been forced to respond, pointing out the obvious, in which, if there's a battle for democracy, Trump continues to prove that he would side with authoritarians.
Viele von Ihnen werden heute Nacht angesichts der unsäglichen Videos aus dem Weißen Haus unruhig geschlafen haben. Ich ehrlich gesagt auch. Leider war das kein schlechter Traum, sondern heftige Realität. Unser Entsetzen ist heute größer als zuvor, aber ebenso unser Commitment für die Menschen in der Ukraine, für unsere eigene Sicherheit und für den Frieden in Europa. Der gestrige Abend hat unterstrichen, eine neue Zeit der Ruchlosigkeit hat begonnen. Eine ruchlose Zeit, in der wir die regelbasierte internationale Ordnung und die Stärke des Rechts mehr denn je gegen die Macht der Stärkeren verteidigen müssen. Denn sonst kann kein freies Land mehr ruhig schlafen, das einen stärkeren Nachbarn hat. Das alles hat sich bereits seit geraumer Zeit abgezeichnet. Und deswegen haben wir seit längerem an neuen, gestärkten Bündnissen mit all denen in der Welt gearbeitet, die bereit sind, weiter für eine regelbasierte internationale Ordnung und die Stärke des Rechts anstatt das Recht des Stärkeren einzustehen. Eine Täter-Opfer-Umkehr wäre das Ende des internationalen Rechts und damit auch das Ende der Sicherheit der allermeisten Staaten. Und es wäre zu Ende gedacht auch fatal für die Zukunft der Vereinigten Staaten. Denn kaum ein Land könnte mehr auf die Glaubwürdigkeit der ältesten Demokratie und der stärksten Militärmacht vertrauen, wenn es zu einer Täter-Opfer-Umkehr käme.
Even against his own pick for NATO ambassador, Matt Whitaker, who said during his confirmation hearing on Wednesday that the US commitment to the NATO alliance and Article 5 in particular would be, quote, ironclad. Well, I ask you, the Midas Mighty, does this sound ironclad to you?
Well, I think what's going to happen is Ukraine wants to make a deal because I don't think they have a choice. I also think that Russia wants to make a deal because in a different way that only I know, they have no choice either.
Because clearly to leaders across the world, they're not so sure.
Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Connaissons tous la situation.
I think we all understand the situation. Russia is the aggressor and Ukrainians are the aggressed people. We must respect those who have been fighting since the beginning.
Il y a 3 ans et de continuer à le faire. Et quand je dis nous, ce sont les États-Unis d'Amérique, les Européens, les Canadiens.
We're all right, Europe, Canada, the Japanese, to help Ukraine and sanction Russia 3 years ago. And we will continue to do so.
Can't get enough Midas? Check out the Midas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.